All right, let's jump right in. We're doing a deep dive on testosterone today. You guys sent in a ton of research on it. Seems like you're ready to go way beyond just testosterone builds big muscles, right? We're talking about
Yeah.
supplements, the immune system, even kidney stones. Wow.
Yeah, it really is interesting how testosterone's effects are so much broader than what most people think. It's really involved in so many different functions in the body, like bone health and how we respond to illnesses.
Okay, so how about we start with something I think a lot of people want to know about? Those supplements, the testosterone boosters, do they actually work the way they say they do? There's a study here that looks into that.
So this was a really thorough review. They examined the research on 27 different things that are marketed as testosterone boosters. And for most of them, the answer is they don't really live up to all the hype. But the research did point to a few promising possibilities. It gets really interesting when you look at the specific needs someone might have.
Oh, okay. So it's more complicated than a simple yes or no, like, do they work? It depends on who's taking them and for what reason.
Exactly. So, for example, they highlighted betaine. It's found naturally in foods like beets and spinach as something that might boost testosterone in male athletes.
Betaine, huh? So next time I'm eating my beets, I can tell myself I'm boosting my testosterone, right? That's way more appealing than another protein shake.
Well, hold on. It's not quite that simple.
Mm-hmm.
But it does suggest that what you eat could have an effect, particularly for athletes.
Okay, makes sense. What about men who are concerned about their testosterone naturally declining as they age? Was there anything in the research for them?
Yeah, actually, there were a couple of things that seemed encouraging. One study showed some positive results using something called Uricoma longifolia, which is also known as Tonkat Ali. Another study found a blend. It had pomegranate rind and cocoa seed extracts that seemed to increase testosterone in men dealing with age-related decline.
Wow, interesting. So there's a lot more to think about than just going to the store and grabbing any random bottle of testosterone booster off the shelf.
Absolutely, and that just emphasizes how important it is for people to get advice tailored to them. Anyone thinking about taking these supplements should really talk to their doctor to figure out what's right for their own situation and health.
It's like knowing what questions to ask is just as important as the answers, especially when you're dealing with something as powerful as testosterone. Speaking of unexpected things, there's a study here that found a connection between testosterone levels and, get this, the risk of kidney stones in men. I never would have thought of that.
It is surprising, isn't it? This research indicated that men with low testosterone, especially those between 34 and 44, were more prone to developing kidney stones.
This is wild. We tend to think about testosterone in these narrow ways, but this deep dive is showing us that it's so much more complex.
Absolutely, it
Yeah.
affects so many things. And it gets even more intriguing when we look at how testosterone affects our immune systems. There's some groundbreaking research here on transgender men going through testosterone therapy and how it actually changed how their immune systems responded.
Yeah, I read that one. It was amazing to see how testosterone can have these ripple effects throughout the body.
So in the study, they found that testosterone therapy actually changed the activity of the immune cells, including a decrease in interferon production. Those proteins are super important for fighting off viruses.
So it's almost like when it comes to the immune system, testosterone can be both helpful and harmful.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Now, keep in mind that study focused on transgender men. But it does bring up some big questions about how testosterone might impact immune function more generally.
It seems like we are only just beginning to understand how testosterone impacts our health and well-being. It really makes you think. If something like muscle growth, which seems pretty straightforward, is connected to all of this, what other unexpected ways could testosterone be affecting our lives?
That is the question researchers are working on right now. And this deep dive into the research you provided is definitely showing us just how much more there is to discover. It's kind of like we're looking at this really intricate tapestry. And testosterone is one of those threads that connects these parts of the pattern that you wouldn't think go together.
Yeah, I know. This is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about testosterone. Like, we've got this research here about how testosterone could actually affect gene expression in muscle cells. It's pretty wild.
Right. This study, they looked at what happens when you expose muscle cells to testosterone very early on in their development, almost like there's this key window of time.
So are they saying that if muscle cells get a dose of testosterone early on, it could have benefits that last even into adulthood?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're looking at. And what they found was even after they stopped exposing the cells, the ones that had that early exposure to testosterone, they still had these changes in gene expression.
Hmm.
It's like the cells remembered being exposed to testosterone.
That's incredible. So it's like it sets them up to develop and respond differently later on.
It's a fascinating idea. And get this, they went on to simulate exercise in these cells. And guess what? The ones that had gotten that early dose of testosterone, they responded differently to the exercise. It's like it primed them to be stronger or more responsive or something.
Wow, that's really something. Makes you wonder if there are ideal times, during development when hormones can have a big impact that lasts.
Exactly. And think about the implications, right? This could change how we think about something like testosterone therapy in the future. Of course, this was a cell study, so we need to see if it holds true in actual people.
Oh, for sure. But still, it opens up a whole bunch of new questions. Okay, so we can't talk about testosterone without talking about aggression, can we? I mean, people always link those two things together. And look at this. There's research here that tackles that exact issue. It looks at how testosterone and cortisol levels together could influence how teenagers react to being bullied.
See, this is where it gets really interesting. This challenges that simple idea that more testosterone just equals more aggression. What they actually found was that it's more about how testosterone and cortisol work together, the balance between them.
So it's not just about the level of one hormone by itself, it's about how they interact.
Exactly. They found that teenagers who had either high testosterone and high cortisol or low testosterone and low cortisol were more likely to be aggressive when they were bullied.
Hmm. Wow, that's a really interesting look at how hormones influence behavior, especially during those teenage years when things are already so complicated.
It just goes to show you that there's always more to the story than these simple connections people make. And, while we're on the topic of complicated things, we've only just touched on how testosterone interacts with the immune system.
Right. We talked about that study on transgender men earlier, but there's even more to it than that. There's research here that suggests testosterone can actually change the way our bodies react to diseases.
This is crucial research because it shows that testosterone isn't just about things like muscle mass or sex drive. It has a much wider impact than that.
It's true. It's like this deep dive is revealing this whole hidden world of connections that we just didn't realize were there before.
It raises so many questions, doesn't it? Like, if testosterone can affect how susceptible we are to getting sick and how well our immune system fights back, what does that mean for our overall health and well-being? It makes you think.
It really does. Okay, so we've gone from testosterone boosters and building muscle to kidney stones, immune responses, and even the complexities of aggression. Is there anything this hormone doesn't affect?
It just shows you how interconnected everything is in our bodies. And the more we learn, the more we realize just how much more there is to learn.
You know what? You're right. Speaking of learning, you sent in a study on something that's really interesting, but also kind of controversial, using medication to lower testosterone in people who have committed sexual offenses. It's a sensitive topic for sure, but you obviously wanted us to dig into the research on this.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those areas where science bumps up against ethics and societal issues. This study looked at whether using medication to lower testosterone, along with therapy, had any effect on whether these individuals would reoffend.
So they wanted to see if this type of treatment could actually make it less likely that someone would commit another offense.
That's right. And they looked at a group of individuals who were considered high risk. They were being treated at an outpatient clinic, and they compared those who got the medication and therapy to those who just got therapy.
Okay, so what did they find? Did adding the medication actually make a difference?
The results were really something. The group that got the medication, even though they were considered higher risk to begin with, they actually had way lower rates of reoffending than the group that only got therapy.
So this suggests that lowering testosterone when it's done responsibly and ethically as part of a comprehensive treatment plan could potentially be one way to address reoffending.
That seems to be what this study is saying. But, and this is important, it's just one study, right? We need more research to really know for sure and to look at all the potential benefits and risks.
For sure. It's complex. This whole deep dive has been amazing. We've gone from the cellular level all the way to this really complicated human behavior. And one thing's for sure, testosterone is way more important and affects a lot more than we give it credit for.
It really highlights that our bodies aren't just these separate systems all doing their own thing. They're these intricate networks. And hormones like testosterone are like messengers that impact so many different functions and responses.
And the more we learn about these connections, the more we see how incredibly complex the human body really is.
Exactly. And with that, let's move on to another really interesting way testosterone can affect things. Have you ever wondered about how it plays a role in exercise performance, particularly in women?
You know, we have been talking mostly about men so far, and now that you mention it, you sent over some really interesting research on how exercise impacts testosterone in women. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so this was a meta-analysis, which means they combined data from a bunch of different studies to get a clearer picture of the link between exercise and hormone levels in women, including testosterone.
So, spill the tea. Does hitting the gym give women the same testosterone boost as men?
Well, it's not quite as simple as a yes or no. What they found was that while exercise did cause testosterone levels to fluctuate in women, these changes were usually smaller and less predictable than what we usually see in men.
So it's more nuanced than it is in men, maybe because of things like the specific type of exercise, how intense it is, or how fit the woman is overall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that you can't ignore individual differences. Everyone's body is going to respond in its own way.
Right. Our bodies are constantly adapting and reacting to what we're doing, and hormones like testosterone are a big part of how that happens.
You got it. And that's really a major takeaway from everything we've been talking about today. Muscle growth, immune response, aggression, even kidney stones.
Mm.
Testosterone's effects are far from simple. They're all tangled up with so many things, our biology, our genes, our environment. It's complicated.
I know. It's like every time we think we've got testosterone figured out, we uncover another layer.
It's a journey of discovery. And this deep dive proves it. We've explored how testosterone could affect our chances of getting sick, even how it might play a role in the criminal justice system. It's amazing.
It really has been an eye-opening deep dive. And it all started with those testosterone booster supplements.
We've seen that testosterone isn't just this one-dimensional thing with a single purpose. It's a key player in this whole orchestra of activity going on inside us all the time.
A symphony. That's a great way to put it. A symphony we're still trying to fully appreciate.
Right. And as we keep exploring and learning, who knows what other incredible things we'll uncover about the human body and how it all works.
It's really amazing when you think about it, how our bodies can adapt to all sorts of things, you know?
It really is. And all the research we've looked at today, it really drives home the fact that when it comes to testosterone, everybody's different. There's no single answer for everyone.
Right. Like we've been saying this whole time, it's way more complicated than just saying testosterone equals this one specific thing. You've got to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, it's all about context. Whether we're talking about muscles, the immune system, or even those unexpected connections to kidney stones, what's going on in the rest of the body matters.
And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting, right? It seems like we're always finding these new things about how our bodies work.
It's true. It's this constant journey of discovery.
Hmm.
And honestly, this deep dive we've done today, it's really just scratching the surface when it comes to testosterone.
I know, right? It feels like we've just opened the door to this whole new set of questions about what testosterone does and how it affects our lives.
If there's one thing we can say for sure, it's that we should always be willing to rethink what we think we know. The human body is unbelievably complex, and testosterone's role in all of that, it's huge.
It really has been an incredible journey today. We started off talking about those testosterone booster supplements. Then we looked at how testosterone could be linked to diseases, and we even talked about how hormones can affect behavior. It's clear that there's still so much to learn about testosterone.
Absolutely. And that journey of understanding, it's never over. So if anything we talked about today got you curious, don't stop asking questions. Don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know.
Yeah, because that's where the real excitement is, right? In the discovery.
You got it. And on that note, here's something to think about. If just one single hormone, like testosterone, can have such a huge impact on so many different parts of our lives, imagine how much power each of us has to shape our own health and well-being and our futures.
That's an amazing thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of testosterone. It's been a wild ride. And until next time, keep exploring.